This is the Lydian spin, and we're not going to stop. But we would appreciate any help we can get because, look, our mouths do not run on gas and air alone, occasionally food and drink. So if you wouldn't mind contributing, no contribution, too large or too small, because we're just going to keep going, whether or not you help us out. Your gain, your loss.
The PayPal is paypal.me/TSD1975. That's paypal.me/TSD1975.
It would help. We're going to keep going. We don't like to beg, and certainly we're not, but actually, it's a fucking command. Take it or leave it. Thank you. This is the Lydian Spin. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch and Timothy Dahl.
Yes. Hello. So yeah, we missed a week, but it's okay. It happens sometimes. We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, yes. After about 400 and whatever, 50, fuck off.
But this allows us, well, we can talk about the current events and keep them up to date.
And current event is we are departing tomorrow, hopefully avoiding the Tornado Alley on our fantastic 10-day tour with Genre is Death. Can't wait for that.
Yes, and while we're at it, let me have to pull it up here.
Starting in Denton, rubber gloves, and then
so hold on. Let me give dates. 4/16 Friday, 4/16 Denton, Texas, rubber gloves. 17 Austin, Texas, the Far Out Lounge. 18 Huma. Is that how you pronounce it?
Homa.
Sorry, we're psyched to go there. Louisiana. Intercoastal Club. 19th. New Orleans, Siberia
with Mike of I Hate God and Genre.
And Mike's also joining us in Birmingham, Alabama, right? In the 20th.
Spoken word. I can't wait for that.
At Saturn, and then Atlanta, Georgia on the 21st at 529. We've played there before. And we also played in Fleetwood, 22nd, Asheville, North Carolina.
Places? Come on,
yes.
Fleetwood.
Chapel Hill, North Carolina, local 506. That's be fun. DC, well, the infamous Comet Ping Pong.
Famous for
Pizzagate, which was well, it's kind of interesting that we're playing there. And then the last show will be in Philly at the Ruba Club on the 25th.
Wait for all of this. It's gonna be fun. Yes, you and I at least are trying to get out. Kudos. Like I said, I was investigating TSA wait lines today at LaGuardia. It was only 10 minutes today. And there was tornadoes and a lot of storms in the Midwest. Everything is, they're moving up from Texas and they're going. I mean, Midwest, the whole state of Michigan is under flood warning.
It's basically like a whole arm, from all the continental United States, from basically Texas to the Dakotas, just sweeping across the nation here.
I think we're going to be lucky once we get out of here.
Well, we'll be lucky, and actually, with the TSA, what they're saying is don't show up 4 or 5 hours early. Because I mean, all these things are supposed to be calculated. They're crazy, insane cluster flux. I like that. Cluster flux is actually a good one.
My next album, Buster Cluck.
Yeah, there we go. Anyhow, we'll get there. It'll be fine, and I very much look forward to it. Yeah,
there's a lot of important and also ridiculous news. I want to start with something a bit ridiculous.
Please.
Because we just have to. I don't know if you've heard about the Trump official who says he spoke to Satan and had his dead girlfriend save him from a car crash.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. He's also believed he teleported to a McDonald's. So he
yes.
Right. So Federal Emergency Management Agency official Greg Phillips has described being saved from a car crash when the spirit of his dead girlfriend lifted his car off the road. In another incident, he spoke to Satan once while he was walking across Spain in 2022. He said Satan approached him. I mean, what was that? Trump doesn't walk, so I mean, we know who Satan is. We know who the Antichrist is. Satan doesn't exist. Satan approached him and urged him to lighten his pack. So the idiot poured out the last 2 liters of water, and then he was left in distress until someone found him. And his quote was, "The devil was right behind me saying, dude, lighten your pack." So I poured out the last 2 liter bottles of water I had. I didn't make it though. Christ brought me to the place. Okay, so then Satan lied to me. Satan lied. He convinced me to pour out my water to reduce my weight. So at one point, at another point, he was inside an Indianapolis Lowe's theater and he collapsed and came to in McDonald's parking lot across the street.
Oh boy.
And he said that there were 15,000 steps logged on his health app and a Big Mac in his lap. He said he didn't know what happened. So I have to say, if there was a Big Mac in his lap, maybe he was just having dreams of the Antichrist who has the nerve. And look, all religions to me are to fill the God hall.
Well,
when Trump puts out a picture of himself as Jesus and claims he's a doctor and insults the Pope, besides, Muslims and Catholics are the biggest religions in the world. Do not stop insulting people.
Well, it's going to backfire. Well, it's funny you say this.
Has.
Well, there is a study that came out about where did I wrote it down? Yeah, Trump supporters, the ones who are just not budging, because there is just a chunk in this country, a third actually. It's embarrassing, but there's some real loyalists.
Inbred stupidity.
Well, they're not doing so well. There's a lot. They're losing a lot of
mental
friends.
Distress.
They're losing. They're kind of, the world's crumbling. They completely don't believe any of the facts about all of his crimes and his rapes and his,
never have. Right?
Yeah, they think it's just a conspiracy, and they're just loyal to the end. Actually, this demographic, I wouldn't say I respect them, but it's a little more understandable. 15% don't even give a shit. So some of them actually just don't care at all how awful he is. And that's more reasonable than the ones that are just, they quickly change the subject and they don't want to deal.
What I think it is, you can't sum up or can you, whole contingents of people, but you would think that gun-loving, non-interventionalist, poor, hardworking, religious or not motherfuckers would say, this is truly a representation of the Antichrist.
Well, and as they say in the Bible, Satan will present himself, and the supporters will be drawn to him and wearing Satan's logo on their forehead, which is "Make America Great Again" hats, basically.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, we both remember the fantasy of this demographic was that masked feds would come in and kill Americans without due process, and they're going to save the day with their guns. And here he is creating that, and then he's also posing as Jesus. So he's literally doing everything.
Posing as Jesus, claiming, "Oh no, we thought it was an image of him as a doctor," because he's making people.
Well, better. It's more lies.
Now again, look, religion. My feelings. God was the first cop. However, Pope Leo, when somebody says preaches peace, it's reasonable. Somebody that pretends they're not going to start a war and then starts one where 7 countries in the Middle East are getting bombed for no reason. Women and children are going to be left again as refugees, add another million to the mix. Cities are totally destroyed, and lies go on and on and on. It's just, here you go. So
everything's a lie.
I'm almost going to side. I'm going to side this time with the Pope.
Well, when he the line about I was actually being depicted as a doctor, an MD, that's equally as
madly demented.
No, that's just as quote unquote believable as him being Jesus. Like him as an MD, that'll never happen.
Well, and by the way, 50, only 50, there needs to be more. Democrats are trying to pull up the 25th Amendment because it's obvious he has beyond the beyond of the beyond the beyond.
You need a supermajority.
This is just so outrageous. So, Trump administration investigating children as extremists. What's next? Toddler terrorism? Children younger than 13, you got to start them young, are under investigation by the FBI after the agency designated an online group as an extremist threat. A group whose members consist of a large number of children. The group is known as 764 and was designated by the Justice Department as a nihilistic violent extremist group, a designation that the Trump administration established to succeed the Biden administration's anti-authority and anti-government violent extremists. I don't think they were children. They couldn't even pronounce that sentence. But anyway, the FBI casts these investigations as a crusade to protect the children from predatory adults. Excuse me. Why don't you
Yeah.
start in your own backyard? Hello.
Well,
What they mention is that many of the suspects are children themselves. And, to obscure this ugly reality, law enforcement portrays itself as merely focused on social media and gaming platforms. But by the way, look, a fish rots from the head first. And this country, if you consider it a giant fucking carp, it has rotted from the head. And there's where trickle down theory, my God, man.
Isn't this a form of gaslighting? As he hides the Epstein files, he's basically going after children right now. I mean, it seems very absurd. Of course, of course, children, hackers and whatever, going on the internet making fun of him hurts his feelings. So mobs of children upset him.
I mean, you know.
Well, one thing is interesting.
Funny. Yeah, Epstein liked to get him young. He was the terrorist.
There you go. Now,
very nice guy, according to Trump. Yeah.
Now they have all these tagged great white sharks everywhere, and a ping of a surface great white shark just was detected, I think yesterday, right outside of Mar-a-Lago. Now the thing is, I don't think Trump swims in the ocean, but
he doesn't. Please, I hope he never takes his clothes off, because anybody can't even imagine how hideous that he would be beached. He should be beached.
Well, he's breached because he's on land. Anyhow, all right. I know. Anyhow, so TMZ, the famous tabloid,
they get it right.
Internet's yeah. Well, they started a new program, a new series, TMZ in DC, and they're doing their basically paparazzi haze, aggressive with politicians. So they had Ted Cruz yesterday. Ted Cruz being Hispanic and representing a lot of conservative Hispanics in Texas. They're like, so who do you side with, the Pope or Trump? And really going after him. And of course,
this is a fucking test, because you know what? None of those cock-sucking motherfucking should confront the cockocracy. They're going to say anything against the Antichrist.
They're avoiding
avoidance theory.
Well, Ted Cruz's response is like, well, I think those two can represent both their opinions. They're like, what do you think?
J.D. Vance, nobody gets his humor. Nobody gets the fact he has a fucking brain tumor. What are you talking about? He's got a brain tumor. 25th Amendment.
J.D. Vance was such an epic failure in the last week, between basically
set up to fail.
Going to Hungary and supporting that.
Oh, I mean,
to get a piece of shit that backfired. And then, of course,
I mean, how can they? This was ridiculous. If they stealthily did that privately, but they can't even. They don't even realize that one of a country that the poorest in Europe at this point, under his dictatorship, the authoritarian mini Putin in Hungary, like that, they don't even understand what the situation is, and they go there proudly trying to promote a 16-year dictatorship for another election.
They're so unqualified. So then he goes on and fails with these quote unquote peace talks in Pakistan between Iran and the United States. He is so underqualified,
unlikable.
The diplomats, very smart diplomats, and went to all these fancy schools, decades of experience. It'll take years to develop a contract. He's just basically showing up. Do this. Yeah. I wonder why it's not working. Fucking
well, and also the problem with this entire administration, or at least on the Republican side, is that they underestimate the intelligence, the culture, the stamina, the strength, and basically the stubbornness of other countries. Like, they think you can just go in and sweep the shit away, just go in and bomb them to the Stone Age.
No.
But the thing is, they do underestimate, because they're so shallow, how other countries have survived as long as they have for thousands of years, where we are now on the verge, after only 250, of complete and utter collapse. And I can't say, that makes me too sad, because Rome has to fall. Rome has to fall. The emperor has no clothes. The king is a shithead. Come on.
It's also this insane arrogance and ignorance.
Thank you.
To not even be sensitive to what other cultures are,
Well,
what their history
that
is. And so it's kind of like when GW, went into Iraq, and he's like, once they just taste the American way, they're just gonna just
yeah.
love this. And
Look,
it's
the
kind of like
Russians couldn't solve it, and America couldn't. And
it's kind of like a
what they
frat
don't,
boy. It's kind of like a frat boy going to a party drenched in cheap
yeah,
cologne
yeah,
and strutting in it, thinks
perfect,
he's the coolest guy, and like
yeah.
total blind spots. Doesn't
And then he
realize how
shits his
foolish he
pants,
fucking looks. Exactly.
shits his pants, and which is a Trump speciality, I guess. But that is part of that mad gas problem is they have no understanding of history. They have no understanding of other cultures or countries. They have no understanding of how the rest of the world lives, whether it's the best or the worst of the countries, all different, of course. They have
Yes.
no idea that there is an alternative, and they have no idea how perverse, perverted, impoverished, wrong that we treat that the administration treats the people in this fucking country, whether it's prison, whether it's poverty, whether it's drug wars, whether it's the poison in everything, whether it's the land, the air, the water we breathe, whether it's the complete corruption. I mean, they just have no clue that other places have actually figured some of this shit out.
Yeah.
The only industrialized nation that does not have health benefits.
Health insurance, and if you do have it,
I'm moving to Massachusetts.
Well, that's good. If you do have it, and here's a fun story. Dr. Thomas Shanovich or something. I can't. Anyhow, out of Florida, out of Tallahassee, just got indicted for manslaughter. He had
taking the wrong organ out.
Yeah, he was supposed to take out a spleen. He took out a whole liver, and guess what happened? That person died.
Can't live without a liver.
How the fuck? If you pass all the tests, you get the job.
I mean, the liver is a large organ. I think the spleen is pretty small.
I think what this must have been it. Well, they might have just been drugging themselves and been out of their minds, but I think it was a very infected, completely swollen spleen, and you couldn't tell the difference between the two because they're basically the same size. The person needed they need a splenectomy, which you don't get a splenectomy unless it's really bad. So but he fucked
Never
it up.
even heard of a splenectomy, but I'll keep that in mind next time I feel a bit swollen or bloated.
Anyhow, well, I'm laughing now, and we're going to be laughing together.
I cannot wait. As always on tour, we have a joyous time because we're doing what needs to be done, and that's murderous again needs to be done.
With Matt Nelson,
satanic symphonies with provocative, poetical, musical spoken word. Genres death. Can't wait. Love those kids. Their new video is out now on YouTube. I See Red. The record is out May 1st on In the Red Records. It's going to be a good damn time.
It is. And also this week, our guest, Al Johnson from US Maple. We're
revealing some pretty revelatory and confessions there from US Maple.
Straight shooter and cool. We're psyched to have him on. So
you know what? I'm psyched with every podcast.
I am too. Come on.
This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our guest today is Al Johnson, singer extraordinaire of US Maple, a band that was out of Chicago in the mid 90s, one of the most diverse and experimental, I would say, truly weird. Hi, Al.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. But you're in Iowa now, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in Joliet, Illinois, which is about 30 miles west of Chicago. I lived in inner city Chicago for 25 years. So I've spent an equal amount of time. Now, I've actually spent more time in Chicago than I have in the place where I was born.
So Joliet, of course, is being famous for its prison.
Stateville and the Joliet Correctional Center. My high school was 2 blocks away from the Joliet Correctional Center. The Joliet Correctional Center is shown at the very beginning of the Blues Brothers movie when he gets out of that prison and the big gates open up and that whole thing. That was a couple blocks away from my high school, Joliet Central High.
Did you ever almost end up in there?
No, I have not. But yes, I have been arrested before. It was in Chicago, and it was for drug possession that was That's been a long time, about 19 years ago or so.
What a
Yeah.
waste of a pullover, or however you got busted.
Yeah, right. Wrong neighborhood, wrong time.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
that
There you go.
that how
Yeah.
long that could yeah, you got to be crafty even back then. I mean, now you have to be really crafty.
Oh, I
And
mean, I'm so glad I was a junkie before fentanyl. I thank the Lord for that, or whoever is the higher power for that, because I, there's no way. I used to go out to the worst neighborhoods with $500 to $1,000 because I was the bravest one who knew the west side of Chicago, which is the open air drug market.
It's also
And
one of the most dangerous zip codes in the whole country is there.
yeah, it's awful. I mean, but I had my couple of crews, and it worked out. I would say 80 to 85% of the time. Yeah, you have to learn things along the way when you're buying drugs. You have to be ripped off a few times when you're buying drugs. But
street
you learn.
hassle and hustle is not an easy thing to do. It's
No,
tricky,
it really is. It really, and there's a
especially if you're
lot of
buying for other people. You were buying not only for yourself, you're coming in with a load of cash.
right. And I remember coming back one specific time, and every single foil I had that was supposed to have heroin in it had nothing.
Oh,
And that's because I made the fatal mistake of ordering a large quantity. And so they told me to hit a block, which means to go around the block while they get it ready. Well, they were going to get the dummies for the dummy.
Okay. Yeah, about a year ago in Brooklyn in Park Slope, I was just sitting at this store and there was a construction site, and it was just this working class construction guy who somehow got into the addiction of opiates,
Yeah,
and I saw the whole thing go down where someone did a deal at his lunch break,
yeah.
and then the guy's gone, and then he realized he got ripped off, and the guy just goes into just a rage of anger, but just desperation. And I felt bad for the guy. He was just like,
I mean, it's
yeah.
life or death. If you've ever been addicted to opiates before,
I wish they
the
worked on me. They really don't, but go ahead.
well, I mean, for me personally, but you wake up in the morning, it's the first thing on your mind if you haven't saved any from the night before.
And of course you
So
haven't.
the second question is where am I going to get the money to buy this, because I have been spending all my money on drugs. So you learn a lot of hard life lessons, and you also learn the obvious, which is, being a drug addict is not the, you've missed some of life's hurdles if you end up if you
What
end
was
up being a
how
heroin
old
addict.
were you during that period, and how long did that go on for?
That would have been from about our third album, Acre Thrills, to Talkers, and then it continued for about 16 years.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what
Yes.
even brought you into that? What brought you into heroin? I mean, look, I've done a lot of drugs. I was happy to never really get into that one. And a lot of other drugs just don't work on me. But I'm glad I had about at least 100 acid trips. That set me straight. Glad I got
I'll
into acid before anything. I'm going to say
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So for me, when US Maple was, once we were signed to Drag City, we were sort of coming up in the ranks of Chicago bands, and we were going to a lot of, I don't want to say industry parties, but parties where there were a lot of people in the industry there and other musicians, and I found that it kept popping up in front of me in the form of lines, and I
Well, I'm
remember,
amazed it wasn't cocaine popping up in front of
oh,
you in
well,
the
that
phone.
that was there, but cocaine was for that was for short-term children almost at the
That was for
time.
the cherry ones.
Yes. And I remember the very first time that it was offered to me, and this person laid out a line. When he left the room, I wiped it off the desk because I was that scared of it. But it kept reoccurring in the same sort of scenario, right? And then there's that critical time when you go, oh, okay, let me see what this is about. And that's the beginning of the end right there.
Did you not get sick on your first adventure
I,
into the
I've
heroin
never,
hole?
all of that propaganda you see about people like throwing up in the toilet and all this. I never got sick from doing heroin, but I've been very, very sick trying to quit heroin. And I know I tried to do it on my own for probably the entire time. So I probably tried close to 70 times to quit
Oh
on my
wow.
own. And it's an absolute nightmare when every cell in your body is screaming for something. And I don't recommend it. Kids, stay in
Absolutely
school.
not.
Well,
And also this, they could make drugs like an ecstasy. They could make drugs that make you feel great, that were not necessarily addictive, that got rid
Right.
of your pain, but
Yeah.
instead they want to, well, and I'm just talking mostly about, the opioid problem at this point. Shitty drugs that make you feel shitty whether you take them or not. So I just don't even understand that affectation. And I just don't get it. But
So
you know,
did you have an issue with opiates at all, Lydia?
I mean, I have back pain, but it shit just doesn't work on me. I mean, none of it does. I mean, I tried heroin twice. It was not for me. I prefer going up, not down. I
Yeah.
was actually ostracized for not being a junkie, both when I lived in New York and London. Like, oh, so I'm not a junkie. So I'm the problem because I'm not fucked up. Fuck off. This is ridiculous. And it's not as
Yeah.
if I was straight edge, but I just didn't get into something. It wasn't for me. But a lot of people I was surrounded by, it was for them. And fortunately, 98% of them, however, whatever it took, got out of it, whether it was through rehab, through rehabilitation, through
what about the grave?
programs,
What about
because
the grave?
otherwise, or the
Yeah.
or the grave, or the grave.
I remember when we recorded the Talker record with Michael Jura in New York. The
Yeah,
studio
BC
was,
Studios.
yeah,
Yeah.
we did that at BC Studios. And it was such a pleasure to me to find out that people deliver heroin in New York. They come right to your door. I was like,
Yes.
oh my God, I don't have to risk anything here except give this dude on 10-speed money and we're all set.
How did
Um,
Mr. Giraffe feel about you, sniffing or snorting or shooting whatever you were doing?
I was never shooting. I don't like needles. I've never had that experience. I was always a snorter. Um,
See, I love needles, but I'm not going to shoot heroin.
Wait, so you
I
actually
just like
were in
needles.
you were in the sweet spot. That's why you could do it for so long. You didn't do needles. You didn't have to deal with the AIDS or hepatitis,
right.
and you did it before the fentanyl. So
Yeah.
there
That
you
is
go.
Lucky you, 16 years of glory. Not really.
that's the sweet parameter right there, and I'm afraid it's ruined for the would-be junkies these days.
Yeah. So I guess the question is because it takes physically it takes about a month to get addicted, like physically addicted to heroin, but about 10 to 15% of people are addicted instantly because it has such an impact on the receptors. Like a drummer I worked with,
Yeah.
he's like the first time he did it, he goes, "Oh, this solves my problems." Little did
Yeah.
he know.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I
I
say
can't.
bring back morphine, bring back opium, bring back really good ecstasy, and leave that dirty shit alone. Come on
Yeah.
now.
You can't beat pharmaceutical grade drugs. You just can't beat it because it's pharmaceutical grade, so it's always of the same strength. It's always
Right.
strong and it's always consistent, you
And
know?
I guess that's what I grew up on because I was lucky to be in the day of Secanols, Tuanols, Mandrex, Quaaludes, pharmaceuticals that worked really well for whatever you needed.
And of
Yeah,
course, I've heard those names, but I have no idea what those
so
are. Are
sorry.
those all
I know.
dollars?
Bring them back.
Yeah, right.
well,
Well,
everyone's
not really.
Quaaludes are a barbiturate.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I knew that. I knew that. So
No,
that's a
it's
downer.
weird because I'm not into downers, but all these drugs were kind of tranquilizing until you mixed them with a bit of whiskey. Then they were probably prioritizing a different vibe, could be a
Yeah,
bit
right,
more violent,
right,
which I was
right.
excited by at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What neighborhoods in Chicago
What
did you live in? Which neighborhoods?
I first moved to a neighborhood called Uptown,
Oh,
and
I know that.
at the time they called it Little Appalachia because a lot of people from the south of the states lived up there.
Kentucky hillbillies were up there.
Yes,
did you two know each
and
other in Chicago or not?
No, because
no,
I had left.
no.
Yeah, and yeah.
Okay.
no, but I first moved to Uptown. It's an interesting area because the Green Mill is right there. I lived real close
Yep.
to that famous jazz bar. Al Capone ran it at some point in his life. The Aragon Ballroom, the Riviera. I mean, there are some great venues, and I lived right near that Apex. And I've seen so many bands there. So many
It
bands
was
at those.
such a ripe time, and Chicago was definitely one of the main spots for people to pass through
Yeah,
in the 90s. I mean, it was just a very ripe spot. And again,
right.
these places that you're naming, there were still some very cool, not only underground clubs, but clubs that had a history, like being run by Al Capone.
Right, right. Yeah. And, also in that area is an area known as the Little Vietnam. It's
All right.
and Vietnam was colonized by the French. So you could go to these really, really crazy French Vietnamese bakeries and get, bonho sandwiches. And I know I'm mispronouncing that, but a lot of interesting food.
Great restaurants up there. It was one of my
Yeah. Oh
dad's
my God, I
favorites. Yeah,
miss
yeah,
that.
going up there. Yeah.
I miss that so much about living in a big city. I so do.
Well, and Chicago has not only, I mean, just the culture. I mean, go back to like the blues, but the culture of food and art and history,
Architecture.
protest, music, architecture. I mean, I think it's a very underrated American city. What I like is there's still a lot of it that is ungentrified, although every place is being gentrified. But I like the Americana. I like the 19 kind of 30s, 40s. I like the Nelson Algren feel of some of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, I lived in Wicker Park,
Yep.
which is, as you know, it's blown up. It's all
But back then, it's still
It was not.
my
back
my
then.
Yeah.
It was scary. It was
well my
when
my
I
my,
lived there. It was
my
scary.
dad bought two buildings in Bucktown in
Oh yeah,
78.
yeah,
In
yeah.
78, and I remember 81, 82, he'd be like to my brother and I, go out and play. Well, he didn't know, that okay, let's do that. And
Yeah, right.
it was the most dangerous people I ever met in my life were when I was a child, and they're either dead or
And
in prison for the rest of their life.
for some reason, Chicago's harsh
Yeah.
seems a lot harsher than even New York or LA harsh. I don't know why. I don't
There's
know
a
why it seems much
there's a
harsher there.
harshness there. There's a harshness there, and
Yeah.
it was explained to
In the
me.
poverty, in the poverty.
This was explained to me also by Corey Rusk, who runs Touch and Go Records. He felt and stated that Chicago, but the reason why Chicago bands are so tough and have such thick skin and survivability is because, well, they have negative 30-degree winters. They have over 90 plus to 100-degree summers.
Summers, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, just to get to your practice space is a journey sometimes, and it's a hardship. You know, we shared a practice space with Tar, the Jesus Lizard, Mount Shasta, um, and we all just sort of pitched in. And at the time, you could you could find a
Oh yeah.
warehouse that nobody was using, and get it for $200 a month. So,
A lot of great lofts and warehouse spaces then in
oh,
Chicago.
I know.
So amazing. Somebody I've always hassled out of Chicago, as I like to call him, Joe Shenanigan. I mean, and working with him, who he always lost money with me, is where I came up with one of my mantras, to which made his jaw drop. I'm like, Joe, I got one night to make the money. You got 364 to make up what you lose. And his jaw dropped, but he just kept having me back year after year to the Metro or whatever he was
Yeah,
running.
it was a
And
cabaret
I'm
metro.
like, I have to say, yeah, this is financial submission that you're in, so you take it or leave
Yes,
it. Doesn't matter. And he took it, which was very kind of him, I have to say.
right. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Shanahan,
I'm not sure if he still books the metro or not, but
uh, probably trying to work, trying to work at Starbucks to get all the money he lost on me. I have no
yeah,
idea.
no kidding, man. You're
A lot of
guaranteed.
good shows at that period, though, and the Metro was great.
Absolutely,
I saw
absolutely.
Body Count there, Ice T.
Oh my God, I saw Nick Cave there. I saw like the Fine Young Cannibals. I saw Crime in the City Solution. I
Oh,
saw
that must have been great.
Sisters of Mercy. I mean, I've seen so many bands there because it is a good room. It's a nice
It
room.
was a good room. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning then. So you're living in Illinois. You're going to university. Is that where you started your first band? How did you even
Yeah.
begin
So
in music?
the first band started.
Shorty.
Yeah, yes. Well, it was actually called Snail Boy initially, and we were sharing the bass player from Tar, and it wasn't working out for personal reasons. So I asked him to leave. I heard he wanted to poison me after that, which is fair.
Wait. He
Yeah.
wanted to poison you.
Yes, yes. He was that
He didn't
angry and
realize
that
you'd end up poisoning yourself for many years.
So I met Mark Shippey, the guitar player, in DeKalb, Illinois, at Northern Illinois University. From that
What were
point,
you studying there? What were you taking at university?
I was studying English literature at the time.
Didn't they have a really good jazz department up there?
They had a very good music department at
Yeah.
NIU. Yeah, they did.
What
I
kind
mean,
of
it's not
literature were you into at that point, or
Victorian.
jazz even? Yeah,
Victorian.
Victor-
Yeah. And it's
Gothic
odd. It's an odd
romance.
choice, even. But I really just, for some reason, I was very interested in the concept of a woman climbing the social ladder without giving up her vagina, or submitting to the men at the time, which was the notion at the time, and just her ability to climb the social ladder. So then you have these authors like, or you have these books like, Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre, and George Eliot. We read all of the classics, and for some reason, I just became very, very interested in those type of novels.
Was it Oscar Wilde? Who brought you in who grabbed you the most?
Out of any author?
No, is it? Am I ignorant? Oscar Wilde's Victorian era, right? So
Yeah, no, he is,
yeah.
and I have read Oscar Wilde, and I like Oscar Wilde quite a bit, but I think I read a book of Oscar Wilde.
Oh, interesting. Okay, all right.
I don't know why. I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what music? Hang on, let's go to the music now at the university. Right. So Tim, you said they had a really good jazz department.
Well, good music department. I know. Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
What? So as a teenager or a little bit older, going to school studying Victorian literature, what music at the time were you into?
I was into, at the time, in high school, in my later years in high school, I was into a lot of the English pop bands like the Smiths. That changed at the university to bands like The Fall, whom I am probably one of their biggest fans. I know a million people say that all day long, but I truly am a huge fan of The Fall.
Well, and again, The Fall, like in each, just take one song, is diverse within itself often. I bugged Marquis Smith for years to do a spoken word show with me.
Oh my
Finally,
God.
he did, and he was so fucked up, I had to throw him off the stage.
Yeah, well, when I saw the Fall at the Cabaret Metro, and it was during the Friends Experiment album. And what I remember from that is he came out and they started their set, but he took his vocal microphone that he was singing in and he kept bashing it and bashing it and bashing it on the keyboards until this Shure 58 was just in splinters. I didn't understand his anger or the actions. But it made an impression on me,
Was he vocalizing at all or just bashing away?
No, I mean, they played their songs and I enjoyed them quite well. So yeah, I can't remember what all they played. A lot of bands will go out and just support the new record, but The Fall has such catalogs upon catalogs of music.
He was always very nice to me, but I know he was not nice to most people. And it was so sad that he just couldn't even do a 20-minute spoken word show, and his lyrics are so fantastic. It was just too fucked up.
I had heard that when I think I want to say Matador Records put a Fall record out or dealt with him on some business level. And as soon as he landed at the airport out there, he called. I forgot who runs Matador, but he called Matador
Causley,
Records.
Gerard Causley.
Yes, yes. He called them and was demanding that somebody get him speed now. Right?
I want it now. I'm at Kennedy Airport.
Did
you know-
U.S. Mabel ever play with the Fall?
No. God, I don't even know if I could have made it to that show if that would have happened. He was a huge influence on me. Marky Smith pretty much defined my ability to be brave about my vocal presentation because I can't really sing. So
Not a prerequisite.
no, that's true. But what when I was listening to like Hex Induction Hour
Yep.
or I mean any Fall record,
Yeah.
I realized that you could be a front man and you could communicate very cool shit and not have to sing it so well. You just would have to create a sound, You would just
If you have a
create
vision,
something.
you give it a sound. If you don't have a vision, shut the fuck up.
Right. And that and pretty much the Fall had a lot, if not the most, to do with my ability to continue on thinking that I could do this.
Yeah. So let's talk about okay, you're at Northern Illinois University, and then now you're forming bands, and then what happens? I mean, how does this all kind of come about? Like, what are the steps here?
How does US Maple okay, you were in one or two other bands not working out, but then how did the configuration of US Maple come to be in then its multiple musical diversity?
Yes. So what had happened was Mark Shippey, the guitar player for U.S. Maple, and I were in Shorty. Mark has been with me for years. I used to work at a record at a music store, and he would come in like every day and take a guitar off the wall and sit down and just play it. And I realized how talented this guy was. Like
that was his rehearsal studio, was the music store you
yeah,
worked at, kind
much.
of.
And I was like, I don't know who this nerd is, but I have to
Like him.
I have to introduce myself, and then it just went from there, and we started becoming roommates and forming bands and forming a real strong friendship, that is carried on up till today.
Fantastic. And was his musical intentions kind of on the same? Were you already into the Fall at this point? Like, what were his musical inspirations?
Mark was into, and also I was into a lot of early classic rock. I mean, that's where my background was as a kid, was listening to music, that was blaring out of the car radio.
Yep.
What I noticed about Mark, Mark brought things to my attention that I wasn't really a huge fan of, like Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett,
British psychedelia. Yeah.
Aussie bands that like the Lime Spiders and stuff like that. And then we both sort of came together on having an affinity for a lot of the amphetamine Reptile stuff that Tom Hazelmeyer was putting out.
One of my favorite people on the planet is Tom Hazelmeyer.
Yeah, he's a super individual. I've never met him personally, but I have mucho respect for the man.
Absolutely. And he's a great artist. He's a great graphic artist. Actually, one of the harshest singles I've ever done was with his band Halo of Flies, recorded in his living room. It's so freaking harsh. And I photographed his daughter when she was 7 at his house with his stockpile of guns. And I made a montage called Ghost Girl, just in case. So I love Tom, and I love the Grumpy's design, and I like everything he's put out. I love Hazelmeyer.
Now, he's an ex-Marine, correct?
Yes.
I would say that's one of the things we have in common. Of course, I'm not an ex-Marine. I just have a Marine attitude. More like a Navy SEAL.
Semper Fi.
Yeah, we had him on the podcast like a few years back, but yeah. So you're getting into amphetamine Reptile records and what Tom was putting out.
And I was
And
also simultaneously, I was also working at Touch and Go Records in the shipping department.
oh, okay.
So I worked there for a couple of years.
So you had moved to Chicago. You'd left. Did you graduate college?
I eventually graduated college, but not until I moved to Dubuque. I graduated college in 2015.
Oh,
from a,
okay, all right. So you
how has that degree suited you?
Not the best financially, but it is in a sealed envelope in the bottom of my drawer, so nobody can take it away from me. You know,
enriched your life, did not enrich your wallet.
Absolutely.
Like most college courses.
All right, so you moved to Chicago and you worked for Touch and Go.
Yeah.
And but you were never on Touch and Go. You're on Skin Graft and Drag City.
That's right. Now listen, this is kind of a cute story. The way I got into working at Touch and Go was, so before there was a Skin Graft, I of course knew a lot of the people in the scene, and I had kept sending people our record, our shorty records. And I was concurrently working with Steve Albini when he only had an 8-track in a bedroom in his house. So it was my hope that I was getting in with the right people who were hooked up and admired and loved by everybody in the scene. So I sort of made the mistake that by association, I might be able to get into this, right? I might be able to get signed by Touch and Go. Okay. And I remember distinctly, while we were recording a shorty single or something at Steve's house when he had the 8-track, I remember Corey Rusk called in the middle of the recording, and I was sitting right next to Steve. And I could tell what was said on the phone, even though I didn't hear it, because Steve and him made some small talk. And then I know what Corey said to him, which was, do you think they're good enough, or what do you think about them?
About and at the time, as you're sitting there.
Yes, and I'm sitting there. And at the time, Steve said, no, I don't think so. But
whoa.
But I hadn't heard the question. I just assumed, I knew that that's what they were talking about. But that didn't stop me. You know, that just made me stronger. And Steve and I became very, very close friends, all the way up until when he passed away. And he was just a beautiful man. He was a talented man. He was beyond talented. He was gifted. So.
And he was a poker champion. I mean, he was a Renaissance man. He was a Renaissance man.
I love Big Black. I love Big Black.
Oh my God, me too. I saw Big Black. I saw Big
Black. Yeah,
they were something to be seen.
I saw
Big Black at NIU in DeKalb, Illinois, and the band went home. Except the bass player Dave, he just decided to stay at my house and never went back home. He stayed for about a month and a half to 2 months.
What?
And nobody questioned it. He just sort of moved in. And I was like, okay, the bass player from Big Black is my roommate.
That's how we did it in those days. That's how we did it. Couches were free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got a couch? Move over.
I was also very much taken, probably one of my favorite bands, American bands, is the Laughing Hyenas.
I love them too. Yeah.
John Brannon, and I was very close friends with the drummer who recently passed away. But I've seen them a number of times. They were such a furious beauty to hear and to watch. I miss that intensity among young bands these days, but I guess people have to.
Well, you should check out Genre is Death, who's going on tour with us starting on Thursday of this week. It's a 2-piece couple, and they're pretty intense. And they have a video that's just out now called Icy Red. They're going to be out in the Red Records May 1st. And this is something pretty exciting and pretty ferocious and pretty very diverse within one band. So I'm going to suggest that. I'm also going to suggest Bog Creeper, out of Harrisburg, also on Bandcamp. And I'm going to suggest New City Slang. So all of this can be found on Bandcamp or YouTube, because we need to know what's out there now and what is the continuum.
Right.
And obviously doing what Tim and I do, just hounding, obviously after so many episodes of this, we need to know what's, because there are things that have a continuum, even though it might not be as it once was when it was, scenes in various cities. But there's still people out there raging and rampaging. We need to know that. We need to share who they are.
There's a band on Skin Graft now called Hypergale, or Hypergales, that Mark Fisher put out, and they're awesome and they're different. We toured with Melt Banana, which was another Japanese band that were absolutely intense. I hated following that band. But then I realized our bands were so different.
Right. Doesn't matter who goes on
It
when.
didn't matter. One didn't really blow the other away because they were just so far
different
apart.
There's a group that played with me recently in the UK. We're going to have on the podcast soon, called the Baby Seals. 3 really hardcore raging gals, kind of runaway Susie Quattro with a little heart thrown in.
Right.
And raunchy. Really accomplished. Yeah.
The first person to really jettison my career, if you want to say that, is Lori Barbero, which is the drummer from
very good friend of mine.
Babes in Toyland.
Babes in Toyland. Lori Barbero, love her.
I love the band. I loved her. So what had happened is she had got. I may have sent her something, and she had sent what I sent her to Long Gone John from Sympathy for the Record Industry.
A great 7-inch label, right? Were they only 7 inches? Yeah,
I believe so. I believe so. So that was our first sort of official, we're on a label. Even though I didn't really take the whole Sympathy for the record industry into perspective.
As U.S. Maple or as Shorty?
That would have been Snail Boy.
Okay.
That would have been Snail Boy, which was the band briefly before Shorty. Shorty was.
Gotta start somewhere, Snail Boy.
Yeah, no kidding. But she's a wonderful person, and she helped me out a lot.
Supportive of so many people. I mean, out of the Minneapolis and out of the Hazelmeyer scene.
Yeah, I was a big fan of a band from Minneapolis called the Bastards. I just loved their heaviness and their songs. They had sort of almost as heavy and as aggressive and as abrasive as they were. They had a weird abstract pop sensibility to them in the way that the Cars do. It's like, you can create noise for noise sake, and then you can create noise for the end being a good song.
Well, that's a bit more seductive. I mean, I'm not really into noise rock. I like something that I can sink and groove into. But I'm going to go back to Lori Barbero for a minute. I convinced Lori to go on a spoken word tour with me, and we went in her Jeep. I don't know how many shows, but I'm like, as a cattle prodder, to try to get as many people up on the spoken word stage as possible. And we had a freaking blast. And I've stayed at her house many times and just adore. Come on, Lori, you can do anybody can do spoken word. It's 20 minutes. Just beat a drum if you need to. Go ahead.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right.
So
and don't think I haven't thought of it.
Steve Albini.
I don't think you shouldn't do it. Hang on, Tim, and don't think you shouldn't do it, because I'm telling you, word is important. You know who's doing 2 shows with myself at Tim Dahl, Matt Nelson, are Murderous again in Birmingham, Alabama, and New Orleans next week is Mike from I Hate God.
Really?
He's doing spoken word. He released a book. We had him on the show, and I have to say, his writing and reading is great.
Are they still out of
Louisiana? They are. That's why we're doing New Orleans and Birmingham, Alabama together next week. Yeah.
Right. I remember we played, we being U.S. Maple, we played Birmingham, and I think there were probably 6 people there.
Well, it's We'll see why do you think I have to go to Europe 3 times a year? We'll see what happens in both Birmingham and Austin and all of the southern. We've been pretty lucky. I mean, mainly I do tour in Europe because they respond and respect what one does. It's a hard road right now.
It really is. But the thing about Europe that's very different than the United States is that you can get to another country in 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, right? So you can cover so many countries, so many territories. I mean,
and U.S. Maple went to Europe early on, which is amazing.
We did, yeah. I actually learned
exact lesson. You better go to frickin' Europe.
I hate to keep jumping around between my bands, but I learned a lot about show business from Rick Sims from the Digits, because he was a consummate performer. It was known that on every tour that Rick went on, he would get very, very sick. So he would sit with a bottle of Golden Seal, and he was putting drops in his mouth every hour, and it would never fail. A week later, he'd be very, very sick and very weak. But yet he'd put that goddamn suit on and he'd get out there and you would never be able to tell. And I was so taken aback about his professionalism, and about the sort of show business aspect that he embodied. And it meant a lot to me that they let us support them for 6 weeks in Europe, which is a long time.
That was back in the day when you could do 6 weeks.
Right. And also, this is a kind of a terrible aside, but while we were in Europe, we found out that the bass player and the drummer, their wives were killed in an accident right before the tour started. So they played in Chicago. They were driving back to Champaign, Illinois, where they were from, and one of them fell asleep.
Oh no!
And I think all 4 of them were in the vehicle, but the 2 wives passed away. So
tragic.
Whenever we pulled over to call family or friends on this tour, these 2 guys were in tears, and it just made me feel so awful and so bad. Yet they got up there and played every night like it was their last night on earth.
Why was he sick always on tour?
I don't know. Maybe he's got a low immunity thing.
Because I never get sick. Forget it. If I get sick, I have food poisoning.
I get sick 1 time a year, and that's about average.
That's enough.
For me. Yeah. Yeah.
You spent years of sickness with your heroin addiction.
And, I get the flu shot every year because I figure, why not? If it doesn't work, if they didn't figure out the right variant this year, then okay, whatever. I don't
get a flu shot, but I did get the COVID shots because I had to go on tour, but I had no effect from that and I didn't get COVID.
Yeah. I took the COVID shots. To my knowledge, I never caught COVID.
Very good.
They say it can be asymptomatic as well, so you don't even know. But I did test myself, and
I love the testing. I love swabbing my nose.
Oh my God! They stick that long ass Q-tip up there.
Well, I did myself. Oh, come on, swirl it, baby. The nose needs to be cleaned. Come on, no biggie. Because look, you can't stand the thought of a Q-tip up your nose. Imagine it down below where it needs to go occasionally. You can't take it as a man. I know that's just the way men are. It's all right.
Right.
No biggie.
Right.
No biggie.
So basically, Steve saying, or as you concluded in your mind, telling Touch and Go that maybe you weren't ready, you didn't have the goods or whatever. You do end up being friends, and you end up working with labels and people that really liked you a lot, rather than kind of twisting a label's arm to get you on. I mean, ultimately, you want someone to really push you and believe in you,
right?
And that did happen. I know Mark Fisher really believed in you.
Oh my God, Mark Fisher was the first person to really believe in us, and
from Skin Graft.
Yeah, from Skin Graft.
Who put out your first album as U.S. Maple?
That's right. And actually, his father ran a very big sheet metal business called Fisher Sheet Metal in St. Louis. And
Okay.
his father set the factory up so that the band and a couple of friends could go down there. And we actually hand manufactured those sleeves and then took a
Oh, great.
burnisher, which is like a sander, and you could put a design onto it. So every one of those 1,000 records is absolutely different
Good.
because it was done by somebody. Of course, Mark graduating from the Art Institute of Chicago, you could tell the ones that he did because they looked absolutely incredible, and mine just looked like somebody vomited aluminum on aluminum.
But isn't it
Um,
wonderful that back in those days? I mean, I was just moving some stuff out of my closets yesterday, trying to organize stuff. And I found some stuff that were like back in the 90s, in the 2000s, where you could make, for instance, branded wooden boxes for CDs, where you could make tin boxes and have things in it, where there was you had the ability. And I mean, now I'm into 48-hour digital printing my own books because that's the ability now. That's where
yeah,
that's gone. But back then, it was you could actually do these handmade things that meant something and that were
right.
unique.
I actually got that idea of making the aluminum record from Steve Albini. So Big Black put out, when they first put out their album Headache, they put out it was a graphic picture of uh, of an autopsy photo of somebody's head being held
Yeah.
back together by the coroner. That
Oh God.
record, if I remember correctly, was inserted into a steel jacket. This thing was heavy. This thing must have weighed 5 to 7 pounds. But it became a postal financial nightmare for them.
Oh yeah.
So he had a bunch of those in the closet.
It-
And I got the idea, but I thought, what if we used a lighter metal?
Very good idea. And how
Yeah,
about that my pal's dad has a steel factory, and then that's just
yeah.
ridiculously
And
cool.
yeah, it was great for that to be available to us. Mark put his faith and all of his finances into US Maple. And when we finally moved from Skin Graft to Drag City, I know it hurt him. And we had a private beer together, and he was very upset because we were his flagship band at the time. And I kept telling him, it's not you, Mark. The thing is that you're trying to run this entire label and do all of the jobs that needs to
By
happen for
yourself.
a
Yeah,
label to run. You're the publicist, you're the financier,
too
you're the guy,
much.
you're the A&R guy, you're the artist. I mean, he was doing so much that when we were on tour and journalists were calling in, nobody was picking the phone up because he didn't really have a staff in place right away at the beginning. Of course, that changed as he got more bands involved and the label became more successful and poignant. Um, Drag City, once I got that offer from Dan Koretsky and Dan Osborne, that was just a no-brainer for me because it was a well-run business.
And
And
let's face it, look, I mean, you need someone sometime to help with all the
yeah,
work that goes into being an independent artist because so much of it we have to do on our own. And you can
absolutely.
find somebody that has some bit of production cohorts. It does help. It helps.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think it's absolutely necessary. If you're in a Ford Econoline van in Lawrence, Kansas, and you have a question or a concern about a contract or whatever,
How to be able to reach somebody.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And also, I became very good friends at one point. We're still friends. It's just been a long time since I've seen him. But John Spencer actually got us, US Maple, signed to the Billions Corporation, run by Botch. The Billions Corporation, as a booking agency, is a top tier agency.
And what year was that? When was that?
That would have been probably
2000 something.
Probably 2000, around 2000, I would think.
Yeah.
Because the band finished around 2007. But I remember we played a show in Detroit. We opened for John Spencer, and John must have liked what he saw, and he put a bug in Botch's ear, and Botch was there. And Botch pulled me aside and said, "How many shows a year do you think you guys do?" And I quickly did a calculation. I said, 85 to 100.
Which is a lot of shows.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that made sense to him financially. I don't really think Botch was the biggest fan of US Maple, but I think he saw us as a band that had potential for success.
And working and able to work and do the work, and has their own sound and has already been somewhat established.
Yes, yes. And so once we got hooked up with Billions Corporation, then our guarantees were guaranteed. And we had a rider, and we had all of those nice things that bands get when they're in that nice position of being able to ask for things. I know for a fact on our rider we required 4 pairs of black socks, one local newspaper, and a bottle of Maker's Mark.
Of course, and that's a simple request.
Yeah, and dinner, or a payout,
buyout, or whatever.
Yeah, buyout. But that being associated with the Billions Corporation really jettisoned our band.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say, particularly at that time, having a good agent way better than having a good label.
Right, and I tried so hard to get Peter Davis to like us.
Really?
Because
I chose so hard to get him not to like me.
Well, it's just Creature booking. That
he booked me for a while, and he's a great guy. He's a diehard.
He is, and because I was in the AMREP.
Yeah,
I had an affinity for the AMREP bands. They were doing well. They were all over the place doing things.
Plus, Peter Davis read books.
Yeah, he's a smart.
And as a matter of fact, not even a year ago, he sent me a book by somebody.
Really? Okay, yeah.
And I haven't talked to him in like 20 years, but he did used to book me. Anybody that can still read a book or recommend a book, I'm all for.
Yeah. Now,
my Victorian master on the other side.
I think he lives in LA now. I'm not sure if he's still.
Yeah, I think he does too. Yeah. So now, bring us up to date now. So the band eventually ends, because they do.
Yeah.
What year did it just say, okay, that's enough? This is as far as we can go. But by the way, it was very diverse, extremely experimental, harsh, and then sometimes not so harsh. I really do like the album that Mike Giral produced at BC Studios. I do like the diversity within that and from your other stuff.
My favorite album is Talker, the one that we did
that I'm recommending. I agree. It's really very cool. So what just, okay, that's enough. I mean, because look, I say that's enough for bands all the time, but I go on to have something the next, because I'm obsessive.
What had happened was I met a girl who came to one of our shows in Madison, Wisconsin, and we started to date. And at some point, she told me that she was pregnant.
Oh boy.
And I remember when she told me, I cried. And it wasn't so much tears of joy at the time.
Fear.
But I love my son. I adore my son, Van. His name is Van Miller. He's 20 years old now.
Congratulations. That's a big job. That's another whole job unto itself.
It really is. But she was from Dubuque, Iowa. So I didn't want her to raise him by herself and just bring him to Chicago every now and then. I wanted to be in his life. I wanted to be a father.
You're a good man, my friend. You're a good man.
So thank you. I made the move here, and I knew once that happened that was the final nail in the coffin. I can't drive 3 hours to Chicago for rehearsal a few days a week. I just can't.
So then you go to, are you in Dubuque now? Is that where you are?
That's
What
where
did you, okay, so you go there, you're going to have a baby. What are you going to, what are you going to freaking do? What do you decide to do?
I decided to go to work. I was a welder for 5 years for the Cummins Corporation, which makes which our plant made very large emission systems for like cruise ships and
Did you ever
trains and
make
stuff like
art
that.
with the welding talent you have?
No, I never considered that.
Because you're
You know,
working, it's your work. Leave it alone. Right.
yeah, it was more of like an assembly line production, and
Okay.
each
All
person
right.
was responsible for certain welds, and then at the end of the line, you have a weld inspector, which I became a weld inspector. And if they were good welds, they were put in the good box, and if they were bad welds, they were put
And the
into the
other
bad
box.
box. Yes. So I did
I
that.
have to ask you, have you ever seen The Machinist with Christian Bale?
I have. I
It's one
love
of
that
my
movie.
favorite films, and somehow it just reminded me of that.
And what that reminds me of is I read an interview about him during that movie, and he lost so much weight for that
60 or
role.
something pounds. Yeah.
He looked insane. He looked like a
That film is
skeleton.
it's so great.
It really
It's
is.
So
And
anyway, you just gave me a little tingle of The Machinist thinking about this one.
yeah, yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Have
So
you
then
seen
you
the?
graduate
Yeah,
from welding.
yeah. So I left welding and sort of bounced around with jobs here and there. Um, I've been working here at the Dubuque Rescue Mission, which is a big homeless shelter for men. I'm the
And
case
let me
manager
thank you
here.
for that because that is an important job. People
It,
don't
it
realize how many homeless people there are in this country. And I mean, look, in Los Angeles alone,
six
or the
hundred
amount of
thousand.
veterans. How many?
600,000.
Yeah. And a lot of vets, a lot of
Yeah, oh,
veterans.
absolutely. I deal with vets all the time,
Yeah.
and we actually have someone who comes in here once every couple of weeks because vets don't even realize what benefits they have hidden.
No, of course. And you know what?
Ye-
I mean, the treatment after what they've gone through. I mean, this is really one of my big beefs. I have to say. Yeah, I do a
Yeah,
lot of speaking about the endless freaking war. And when I first started speaking even about prison, it's like the homeless population then was like 30,000 vets in Texas.
yeah, right, right,
That was year. That was decades ago.
right. Yeah, it's there's a fairly big homeless problem in Dubuque, and Dubuque is
Everywhere, everywhere.
it's a town of about 75,000 people. So where I work now, I mean, there's 3 meals a day. There is AA and NA meetings held here. Um, there
Oh, it's
are,
so important. It's so important to do that kind of service for people.
it's honorable,
Thank
but
you.
it doesn't
It's
pay well.
honorable.
It's honorable. My son said, I think I told my son, I said, I haven't, he laughs at me quite a bit. I said, I have an important job, right? And he goes, Dad, you have a noble job.
Wonderful. Well,
Which is good enough for me.
wonderful. I don't know if you know about that program that was started in prison by two guys that they brought theater and art into prisons to help help people recuperate
I think that's amazing.
and I do workshops for mostly women from the page to the stage. I have to say, I think I need to apply my services to something like this, to go into some of these places, to get
Yeah,
them to write and perform in order to help alleviate the devastation that lies within if they don't have a voice to release it, because it's
absolutely. I mean,
a freaking shame.
whether you're in prison or in a homeless shelter, I mean, these guys are coming
Whether
in,
you were in war,
yeah, or a war, especially that. So you have that trauma. Now you're a broken man because you have nowhere to live.
and the
Uh,
disrespect of the US government. Exactly.
absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely freaking horrifying. I'll go build a $400 million fucking toilet ballroom, you cocksucking motherfucking orange ass clown. And let the veterans just die and suffer where they will. And fuck you. This is that. And making more dead people or suffering people all the time. I don't need to get into it. It is what I do all the time. I'm just going to say, Al, you have a noble job. Rock and roll, whatever. You did your time there and you did a good fucking job of it. But now you're doing a job that actually benefits people. So please take my ultimate respect for that, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, Lydia. I really do. Thank you.
It means a lot because people need some respect, some help.
Yes, they do. Everybody does.
And because it's going to end in about 2 minutes in this interview because of the way it's timed, but with all due respect to everything, basically reiterating what Lydia says, but I just want to thank you for doing this. It's actually been pretty cool.
I was flattered. I'm actually very surprised that after 30 years, people still talk about U.S. Maple. People still.
I have friends who you're their favorate band.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I still talk about No Trend, and nobody liked them ever. I was talking about No Trend last night, which share kind of a similarity just because they were weird and diverse.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much, Al.
No, thank you, and I appreciate the both of you so much. And please keep on trucking.